Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 237. I'm your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 9th of June in the year of our Lord 2023 in the beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And we're here, we're talking, we're chilling, talking about current events, news, whatever comes to the fore. Last night, for those of you who are accustomed in the Mindful Life, last night there was a lively discussion. You might want to catch that one over on my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer, over there on YouTube. You can feel free to head over there and subscribe, and you'll be able to catch all of the lives and repeat anything you missed. But yes, the live last night was a lively one. The discussion was had a bit of zest to it. You know, as discussions go, you know, there's some contention, and you know, some emotions may be heightened and tones may be raised, but it was a fruitful discussion nonetheless. Oh yes, Trini Hotep, I like that word. A very robust discussion. So you could feel free to head over to my YouTube channel and you could take in that whole discussion. I think it lasted over 2 hours. Last night's live went. So you know, tonight we're not looking to go on that long. A brother needs to sleep. The 90-10, the 90% of work needs to be done. Ha! Woo! You know, I've asked before in the live if anybody knows where the cup comes from. I don't think I've ever seen an answer. Where the coffee cup comes from. 10 points to the answerer. All right, yes, correct curve on. Now, let's jump in over on this story and see what they have to say about this missing Galil rifle that they recovered in Macrip. Missing Galil found in Macrip. The Galil rifle that went missing from the Tetron barracks in Chaguaramas last weekend was recovered by police officers in the Macrip area a few minutes ago. Information on exactly where the weapon was found is still to come to hand. But the Express understands that several police officers from the Western Division had arrived on the scene. Sources close to the investigation confirmed that one of the 4 suspects detained for questioning is a soldier attached to the TTDF, while one of the other suspects in custody is a female in her 30s and a well-known social media influencer. There are 2 other male suspects also in custody. I wonder if they recover the Jaguar too. It doesn't seem like they found Jaggy quite yet. It doesn't seem like Jaggy wants to be found quite yet. But they did find the rifle. And, you know, it's strange. It's strange. I wonder if anyone got that 75,000. That's what I'm wondering. Because I don't feel like the army launched a dragnet search over the whole Macrip forest and stumbled upon the rifle just in a ravine somewhere. No, that sounds like someone told them exactly where to go and get it. Did that someone get the $75,000? Is it the habit of the police to announce if someone acquires the reward that was offered? Next thing you know, the criminal went, borrowed the gun for the time they wanted it, did what they wanted to do with it, returned it, and got the $75,000 too. Wouldn't that be a thing? Would that not be a pity? But you know, I understand, and you have to understand that in reality, much of the crime that isn't solved when they don't want it to be solved, you know. Maybe a army man get the 75K. I'd like to sign up for crime, please. Lol, Ronnie, lol. Funny. Let me tell you why you shouldn't sign up for that crime, Ronnie. Let me tell you why. Because really and truly, if you're not in the graces of the people who protect the criminals in the first place, don't worry, they will find you. There is a tendency to actually find criminals if you want to just jump out and play criminal brand new like that, Rooney, you're going to be the one they find. Here's this. West Mooring's housekeeper charged for false report larceny. I don't know how many of you remember that story. A 21-year-old Lavantel woman became the third person charged, arising out of a home invasion last month at a property in West Morings, where she worked as the housekeeper. The robbery happened at a home in the gated community of Regents Drive, West Morings, on May 17th, when bandits pretending to be delivery men entered the compound. The housekeeper, who was alone at the time, gave the guards permission for the delivery men to enter, but later claimed they overpowered her and tied her up. Like, when I first read this story, I always found that this story had some gaping holes in it. Hey, Benny, what's going on? I always found that the story had some gaping holes in it. Like, how do you just let in delivery men that you don't know into an upper scale gated community? Like, sis, what are we talking about here? You don't know these delivery men and you just happen to magically let them in, and then they happen to break into the house and happen to know where the safes are and happen away with the people's safes. Like, sis. And you kind of get the picture that some of the criminals here, they aren't fully thinking through some of this. They aren't giving it their best go. Rooney says, nah, I want to be protected. Well, and that's why, Rooney, in the criminal world, people rather come up inside of a gang. If you go and join a gang, you're joining protection already. That's how the criminal world works. So if you want that protection, you join the gang. It's the get protection easy way. You know, many places in Trinidad and Tobago, I'd say some of the gangs aren't organic. Some of those gangs, it's not like they formed in all of the different places in Trinidad and Tobago. It's that. I'll be right back. Yeah. Good night, Quincy Robinson. Sir, you know how often I speak about the conversation we had? I regularly tell people go and take in that conversation because, you know, it really shed some good light on how local government works. Crime is a business as well. Of course, crime is a business. Of course, without... and I'm grateful that a lot of the businessmen in crime aren't that intelligent. You see, we don't want intelligent criminal businessmen in. That's when we get into trouble. That's when things get really difficult. So it would be lovely if more of the criminals had this kind of planning like they did over there in West Morings. But here's the problem. Here's the problem as far as I see it right now. And this, I think, is where legislation and government could actually come in and do a positive thing. 0.6 million for Kareem and brothers. Court awards Beetham activists. Two brothers over 0.6 million for police ordeal. The High Court has ordered the Office of the Attorney General to pay in excess of $0.6 million to attorney and community activist Kareem Marcel and his two brothers for wrongful arrest, assault and battery and damage to property. Making the order yesterday afternoon at the Waterfront Judicial Center in Port of Spain, Justice Avison Quinlan Williams said the brothers had proven their case on a balance of probabilities and ought to be compensated for the ordeal they faced at the hands of the police officers. The incident that gave rise to the court proceedings took place around 5:30 a.m. on June 27th, 2018, when Marcel and his brothers were asleep at their Beetham Gardens home. The lawmen used a sledgehammer to enter their property by destroying 3 doors to the home, allegedly in search of arms and ammunition during an exercise in the community. Nothing illegal was found in the house. In her ruling, the judge said there were a number of inconsistencies in the evidence of PC Lendell Ogaru, the officer who had obtained the search warrant. He was the only witness called by the state. And right there is the issue I'm having. Right there is the issue I'm having. Didn't UN give the government $1 million for sustainable development last year? I'm not sure. I wonder how long it takes to get paid in these cases. I'm not sure either. But this is the issue I'm having, because this isn't the first time we're hearing about this. This issue about the police officers and their shady warrants is something that seems to be haunting us a bit. It's not only here. Yeah, by Joshua. Yeah. I figured. Check me back tomorrow. We'll resume on what we were doing there. But yeah, this isn't the first time that we have consequences to pay because of the officers and their shady dealings with their warrants. The Brent Thomas case, where the alleged abduction occurred out in Barbados, there were some shady warrants that the judge spoke about there, where it seemed obvious that the GP was rubber stamping the warrants. With the case against the minister's son, who was using the floating restaurant, and the police went in and seized his phones and his laptop, and they were attempting to seize more and more and more, and he took them to court, and the JP didn't even bother to show up to court to answer the warrants. More shady warrants. And the thing is, we are going to start to lose more money because of this. The legal system in Trinidad and Tobago works on that British common law idea, where, you know, you have precedent. If something is shown to be wrong once, you could argue that, well, for any other time it is done in that similar manner, it would be wrong in that case too. How many shady warrants do you think there are out there? And you see, the issue is, even if the police attempt to say, well, you know, what is going on here is that we have to go around the legal framework to try and get the criminals. It's difficult to get the warrant in the right way. So, you know, we're taking this little shortcut to get at the criminals nonetheless. So, okay, even if you are attempting to say that, yeah, those are criminals, those are all criminals you're dealing with, well, nonetheless, now you're going to be giving all these criminals quite a lot of money. How many of these people, who would have been wrongly prosecuted by the police, finally found what I was looking for, who would have been wrongly prosecuted by the police, persecuted to some extent, with warrants that just didn't make sense, how many of these people would be coming back around to sue the state? We have 80s policing and 2000s criminals. And listen, more and more we are seeing regular Trinidadians are using the legal system, using the courts. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I could tell you, if police run into my house and just break down a door right now, I'm going to be taking them to court too. The unfortunate thing is that it's going to take money from the general Trinidadian's pockets. And that's unfortunate that the general taxpayer must pay for the incompetence or bad actions of the police officers. That's unfortunate. But it is what it is. Let me pull up this op-ed I saw and see if we could get a little read of this and see what it says. Unwarranted warrants. Not only does the award of hundreds of thousands in damages by the High Court on Wednesday to 3 Beetham residents point to the need for better police conduct, it represents yet another ruling signaling the urgent need for reform of the process by which warrants are obtained. The case involved three brothers, including, we know what the case did. Mr. Marcel was dragged naked from his bed, threatened and put in handcuffs. He was not allowed to see the warrant, which an officer purportedly obtained from a justice of the peace. No official involved in this case was able to furnish an ounce of evidence supporting any reasonable basis upon which such an invasion of privacy could have been warranted. On Wednesday, the justice awarded $618,000. The judge further held the warrant used by the police was maliciously procured. The fact of its mere issuance was not good enough, and the officer who caused it to be issued did not have probable cause. If this case confirms the perception held by many of a police force enthralled to an array of prejudices, it also represents yet another judicial finding which points to the deficiencies of how justices of the peace perform their duties. The case brings back memories of the 2021 ruling by Justice Francis Prasad on search warrants being issued in relation to the media, in which he noted the law is archaic and deficient and that it requires urgent review. The little progress that has been made in the area of reform, however, was only recently confirmed by the now infamous Brent Thomas ruling, in which another High Court judge had cause to lament the way warrants were granted by a justice of the peace against Thomas. Again and again and again. More than 100 detainees from the SOE. Wow, yes, that's true. It's just incompetence. That to me is the only excuse the government has for not doing an SOE. If our officers incorrectly obtain warrants, that basically means anyone who has the ability to afford a lawyer, the police are in trouble. Anyone who could afford a lawyer, the police are in trouble. The thing is, because the police might be so accustomed to doing ratchet fee warrants, you all know what ratchet fee means, right? We know what ratchet fee means in Trinidad and Tobago. If the police are so accustomed to doing ratchet fee warrants, the thing might end up being such a case that the police may have the evidence. They may have all that is required for a proper warrant to do the thing properly, but they're so accustomed with the rubber stamping warrants from the JPs that they don't want to go through the difficult process. So they just go by the JP, get a rubber stamped warrant for a case that they could have made solid. And now the case is in jeopardy. We may be losing money to someone who might be an actual criminal. May not even need money because the precedent's causing lawyers to take the case at short money. Exactly. You see, there's a certain law chambers called Freedom Law Chambers that seems to be chomping at the bit to battle any battle against the government. And once it seems like they're going to win, it seems like they're taking it pro bono. They know they will get the money back when they win. So this isn't a good setup. We're set up in a way to lose a lot of money. A lot. A note here by a lawyer on Twitter. A widely known but unspoken truth about collusion between police and select JPs. Police engage JPs to grant bail approvals, and in return, JPs provide bailers to act as sureties, albeit at a cost. The profits typically circle back to the police, establishing a dubious cycle of mutual benefit. This unholy alliance facilitates rubber stamping and backdating of warrants. What's the body that holds JPs accountable? I am not sure. I presume it would be the JLSC. I would presume. I'm not sure. I'd ask a lawyer. Of course, it's incestuous, Kilvon. There are lots of relationships in our bureaucracy that works like that, and this is the problem that I was speaking about the day when the young lady was saying that the problem is Trinidad. Let me put it as the young lady, like I can't remember who it was. I think it was Little Miss Mediator was saying that Trinidad's problem is we are too lawless as a society, and I was saying the problem is we have too much of a bureaucratic system. When you have a system where the police and the GP work in an incestuous relationship to work for their own benefit against the public. If you as a person in the public want to get in there and get something done, aren't you going to try and cut corners? It's the nature of the system we have created. It's the nature of that system. I was hearing recently, I don't know how many of you are following the accusations of trafficking within the ranks of our opposition political party. There have been some serious accusations that some high-ranking officials inside of the opposition party may be closely involved in trafficking, as they may be the proprietors of several establishments that are known to be involved in trafficking. All right. You can read between the lines and read the articles that speak further about that. Now, a former opposition member, one Dr. Devant Maharaj, who is right now residing in Canada, came down to Trinidad to give evidence for that, allegedly. That's what he said he came partially to do. He spoke to the police to go and give that evidence. The police contacted a justice of the peace for him to go and give his statement too. The justice of the peace that the police selected for him to give his statement to was allegedly an activist for the opposition party. One of the most well-known activists for that opposition party in Trinidad and Tobago. Like, not the kind you make a mistake about sending someone to. That's the kind of situation we have here. And, you know, it's not really that surprising when you think about it. Because if they're talking about human trafficking there, already in Trinidad and Tobago, we know that the human trafficking business, the black market of human trafficking, the dark, disgusting practice of human trafficking is protected and in some cases run by police officers. So it's no surprise that police officers would work in protection of human traffickers. But you're seeing the working even with allegedly a justice of the peace. And she is a high-ranking member of the clergy as well. Yes, she is the highest ranking member of a certain denomination's clergy. If you all know, you all should know by now. Lots of clues. But that's the system we have in Trinidad and Tobago. That's the system. Like, imagine how frustrating that is. Imagine how frustrating that is. That you could have establishments built concrete and mortar, engaging in illegal activities for decades. Everyone knows. And you cannot even report it to the police because the police, along with the JPs, are protecting this. And then the regular citizens out here would turn around and say that Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinis are too lawless because they want dark tints on their vehicles. And the Trinis are too lawless because they put a HID light in their vehicles. That's what makes the Trinis so lawless. Yes, these lawless Trinis. Not that we're existing in a system that is basically run on corruption. No. That's not what creates the lawlessness. No, it's just the Trinis. For some reason, once you're born with that Trini in your marrow, that Trini to the bone marrow, once you're born with that, you naturally have a predisposition to corruption. Sure. But jumping swiftly over, changing gears, and I know Wednesday is Tobago Day, but that doesn't mean we can't speak about Tobago on other days because this was just so interesting I didn't want to leave it out. THA records $7 million loss on Carnival Jazz Experience events. RL, you in the chat still? Ronnie, you in the chat there? Are the Tobagonians in the chat? Because I was promised by the THA that these events were going to be profitable. These events were going to bring in the paper. That was the promise. Oh yes, the Tobago House of Assembly incurred a $7 million loss on the recently concluded Tobago Jazz Experience and Tobago Carnival last October. After spending $9.2 million to execute Tobago's Carnival, the two-day event flopped, leaving the THA with a loss of $706,317.58. This was revealed by a joint select committee on the administration of the THA yesterday. Reading from a document he received from the THA GSC member, Lawrence Hislop revealed to his other colleagues that the island's carnival cost $9.2 million. The THA, meanwhile, spent $8,368,153. Corporate sponsors contributed $830,000 and $9,030 worth of tickets were sold. You're listening to that breakdown? THA spent $8.3 million. Private corporate sponsors, and corporate sponsors, that's how you could feel the pulse of something, because they are sponsoring something based on the ability to gain something back by and large. So their sponsorship is based on how they predict the event is going to be. Their sponsorship was at what, 10%? Probably, yeah, about exactly 10% of the THA's contribution, and the ticket sales were $9,000. $9,000. And I mean, ticket sales is something you could use to judge how people actually feel about these events. Yes, there were some events that required tickets. 9,000 was how much they made from those tickets. Something is weird there. Following the carnival last year, THA Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, Tasha Burris, had pointed out that the initial budget for the inaugural carnival was $17.5 million. However, she said what they actually expected to spend after the Tobago Festivals Commission and Tobago Tourism Agency Limited tabulated expenses would be in the region of $12 to $13 million, which meant the assembly was expected to save $4 million. At yesterday's GSC, Hislop questioned Division of Finance, Trade and Economy employees on whether it made sense to host Carnival again in the next 4 months, considering the THA did not break even. Chief Technical Advisor Anselm Richards defended the event, saying it was not meant to make a profit, but to encourage tourists locally and abroad to visit Tobago. The Tobago Carnival was not conceptualized as a profit-making event from the perspective of the THA, but rather a vehicle to bring human traffic into the island. If you understand the nature of the Tobago economy, you need human traffic to generate economic activity, commercial activity on the island, Richards told the GSC members. But something seems a bit dishonest about this, because I don't know how many of you remember the articles from last year, where the small vendors were complaining that they did not see the profits coming from the carnival. The small vendors were complaining that they didn't get any money out of the Tobago Carnival. The only money that came in went in, if at all, to some of the larger hotels. Let me see if I could pull up that article. And I don't know how many of you remember, the THA promised that they were going to pay the vendors back. Remember that? That they had to pay the vendors back? All right, I'm looking to see if I could find that article. Trinidad has a bad way of cataloging our articles, so it's difficult to find what you're looking for. But the THA promised that they were going to pay back these vendors because the vendors were complaining that the amount of business that they were promised, they didn't even get a fraction of that. I'm just looking to see if I could pull up that article on a quick there. I didn't expect to pull it up, so I'm looking. Just let me just pull up this one from last year, where the secretary said money made at Tobago Carnival, Tobago's first ever carnival, is being hailed as an economic success, particularly in the tourism sector, as hotels were mainly filled to capacity. Restaurants and street vendors did brisk sales, and even those selling clothes and other items in support of the sector made money. The Business Guardian was told that those in the transportation sector was also booked out as thousands of nationals, some from the diaspora, converged last weekend on the Sister Isle for the revelry. All right. I'm looking to see where the vendors made their complaints. I can't seem to find that article on short note. That's unfortunate. But take my word for that. We read that, we went through that article previously where the vendors out from Tobago, they were saying that during this carnival, the amount of traffic that they were promised, they went out there and they bought goods. They bought the raw material to go out and sell, and they didn't sell it back. So to say that what the reward for this carnival was in the foot traffic that came to the island. Well, where did the foot traffic go? The vendors were saying they didn't see it. So if the vendors didn't see it and then the general economy didn't see it, what was the profit? Kervon said there's no data on the impact of this event like the larger carnival as a whole. Correct. There is none. It's a hope. They're hoping that it is going to do that. And the Tobago Jazz Festival was actually pretty similar. And to me, the Tobago Jazz Festival had a bit of a positive, because in the Tobago Jazz Festival, when they quoted their ticket sales, Tobago Jazz ticket sales amounted to $2.4 million. So what that tells me is that Tobago Jazz just needs to tweak itself to become more efficient in the expenditure compared to the income. But $2.4 million in ticket sales tells me that there is interest in this. There is open market interest in this. There are people who would spend their money to go and participate in this event. That's something that you could work with. But when you're talking about $9,000 in ticket sales and $800,000 in corporate sponsorship, the corporate sponsors aren't interested. That means they don't see themselves getting a return on advertisements. And the general public aren't interested either, because they aren't paying for tickets. Who is this event for? They never actually measure changes in economic activity and all of the opportunity costs involved. I don't think they did. I think that the Tobago Carnival project, and looking at how the TPP is ruling a bit now, and I let you know my opinion of the TPP is dropping lower and lower and lower, and it was not always like this. People who follow this live, people who take me in over time, I was pretty hopeful for Farley. Hopeful, but my opinion of them is going lower and lower and lower, and it could seem to me that the Tobago Carnival is an attempt at securing and concreting a legacy for themselves, something that going on into the future they could point at, and something recreated that would last on through time. It seems like a personal self-aggrandizing kind of project. It does not seem like it's in the best interest of Tobago. That's my opinion of it. Non-Bago promoters and mass bands profits they used, maybe. I don't know about any profits. They didn't get any profits, so there weren't any profits to be used. Now, just a quick tidbit before I run away on a nice shorter leave tonight, you know, a nice shorter leave compared to last night. An article I saw that I said, you know what, I have to read some of this so that people would understand the direction things are heading in Trinidad and Tobago, and they would bat in their crease. Listen to this, folks. Listen to this. WASA worker sues Vancouver woman for Facebook statements video. A technical officer with the Water and Sewage Authority assigned to the Central and South Division is suing a Vancouver woman for defamation for adverse statements she allegedly made about him and the water situation in her village. Kenneth Thomas filed the lawsuit on May 30th against Mira Algu. It has been assigned to Justice Eleanor Donaldson Honeywell. In his claim, Thomas contends that Algu made defamatory statements against him on her Facebook account in April, which were republished by other groups on the social media platform, exacerbating the effect the statements had on him. She's also accused of posting Thomas's photo with the accompanying statements, as well as a newspaper article which featured statements by Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez about WASA employees who were allegedly cutting off water supplies to certain areas to force citizens to buy truck-borne water. Thomas's lawsuit also says Algu also made a video post in which she spoke disparagingly about him. It shall be contended that the purpose of this video is malicious and intended to affect the claimant's reputation and job. The words of the defendant are unambiguous, and there is no innuendo regarding her references to the claimant, nor any attempt by her to hide her malicious intentions. She openly declares the purpose of the post is to negatively affect the claimant. Thomas is represented by attorney Richard Jagasan. Now, the case isn't finished yet, but I will not be surprised if Tanti out there in Vancouver is going to have to find some money to pay Mr. Wasserman. And this is the point that I've been telling people online here. Watch what you see. That social media law and the associated judgments have wide-reaching consequences. Yes, they do. There are a lot of people that say things that will get them sued, and it's just that nobody is interested enough to sue you. I look even on TikTok and watch the willingness some people have to call other people's names. Like, you and them pitch marbles. You and they are besties. You're calling their government name like, sir, ma'am, relax. Relax. Do you have the money to pay them when they take you to court? Because if you're saying something negative about them, you best be able to prove it. Frank basically alluded that you can get in trouble for memes. Yes, you can. It's the defamation law. It's defamation law basically, and they're recognizing defamatory laws through social media as they do through print. So if you post something that can defame someone's name, negatively affect their reputation, negatively affect their ability to gain employment or gain financial reward from their employment, they can sue you. Trini Staples says even with free speech, you can't use the speech to incite violence or damage someone's reputation, which could cost them by either putting them in danger or costing them money, as they may lose their job. Correct. And to be clear, as I regularly see, Trinidad does not have freedom of speech. I said that on Facebook regarding the Tanti who was arrested by the lady constable out in South for speaking too loudly at the protest. And I was like, remember, Trinidad and Tobago doesn't have freedom of speech. And someone took me up in the comments saying, yes, actually we do. And I said, quote it in the Constitution for me. Quote where we have freedom of speech in our Constitution. They went on to quote freedom of expression. And freedom of expression is not the same thing as freedom of speech. You could assume that freedom of speech is understood in freedom of expression, but it's not the same thing. And it's also clearly stated in our law books that offensive, insulting language is illegal. You cannot have offensive, insulting language illegal and have freedom of speech. The idea of freedom of speech is freedom to be insulting and offensive. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the freedom. It's like, I'm telling you, you're free, that we have freedom of religion. You're free to worship who I tell you to worship. No, that's not freedom of religion. If you're only free to worship who I tell you to worship. Or we have freedom of movement, but you're only free to go where I tell you to go. That was me, and it is the same thing. I posted the dictionary definition for you. It is not the same thing. It is literally not the same thing. There's basically one country in the world that has freedom of speech enshrined in their constitution, and that is the United States. Go cuss a police officer, and when they arrest you, tell them we have freedom of speech, and watch them laugh at you while you sit inside of the jail cell. We do not have that. We do not have that. We have obscene language law. Once you have language laws, you do not have freedom of speech. It's not present. It's not in Trinidad and Tobago. You don't have the freedom to stand up in the road and just say what you want. And bear in mind, it's the law, as I said, offensive and insulting language. The law literally has that subjective wording. That's how you know we have those colonial era laws, you know. The law has those subjective wording. Top man, you're making some good points over some years. Why don't you speak to a greater population? Well, once the greater population listens, share the video to the greater population, and hopefully more of them take it in. Officers wait for the first cuss word to arrest folks. And the truth is, Kevon, it doesn't need to be a cuss word. Offensive, insulting language is illegal. And that's a subjective thing. Even in America, freedom of speech varies, yes. According to which state you're in, generally speaking, it varies. But they have it at least enshrined in their constitution, so you can make that argument. There in Trinidad, you don't have that argument. You think you could hire freedom law chambers, go cuss the police, then hire freedom law chambers and see if he could get you off. They'll laugh at you. Trini Staples says, but even in the United States, you can't say I'm going to kill the president. It can't incite violence. You also can't damage someone's reputation by saying someone is a thief or a murderer, which could, I assume, damage their reputation. Actually, you can say you are going to kill the president. You could say that. You cannot incite an imminent threat. Like, you cannot tell someone to go and do this to this person at this moment when they are in that place. That's an imminent threat. And I would wager that's a little different than just free language. You're getting into the realm of violence, of actually inciting violence. That's different from just words that offend. The idea of freedom of speech is that people have the freedom to say what they want as long as it doesn't lead to the literal physical violence side. That's the idea. If you say that the Secret Service will pull up on you, no, they won't, Trini Staple. In the United States, when Donald Trump took power, Madonna, on a platform in front of about 30,000 people, said that they should go kill the president. Someone should do it. This weird comedian from the 90s, the weird old looking woman, what's her name? Kathy Griffin. She had a dummy mock-up of Donald Trump's head beheaded in her hand. One of those feminists, Jane Fonda, I believe it was, called for his assassination too. You know, there are those things. It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. And the Secret Service did not pull up on them. That's not how it works in actual freedom of speech. Like, I'm not even understanding. If I catch another case, I'm gonna kill Giuliani 50 Cent. And no one pulled up on him for that. I'm not understanding what is the fight there. It's obvious. You don't have freedom of speech in Trinidad and Tobago. It is not enshrined in our constitution. The constitution doesn't say it. It doesn't allow it. It isn't there in practice. It isn't there in reality. It's just not there. Listen, you would be a good leader. Do what needs to be done to get your points across. Thanks. Reeves says, Nathan, you're the only one I give gifts to. Appreciated, bro. Appreciated. Even though I have never cashed out anything out of TikTok, I don't know. I probably have about $10 US on TikTok here. You know, I'm always saying what we need. I need to post my bank account somewhere here, so anyone really wanting to give the gifts could put it there. But yeah, freedom of speech, it isn't a reality in Trinidad and Tobago. Be very careful of what you say. Be very careful. And even in places where there is freedom of speech, you don't have the freedom to lie about people. That's a different thing. You're lying about someone is a whole different thing than just you speaking randomly about issues. You're harming someone's reputation. But yes, it's alleged, allows you a lot of latitude to say a lot of things. And that's the thing, you know. Many of the people who get trapped in defamatory statements are people who just weren't sophisticated in their communication methods. Like, you don't have to say things the way some people say things. Some people attempt to be so bombastic, and that's why they're always caught out. So instead of saying that, I think Nathan Springer might be a paid political shill. Can you expand on why you said there isn't freedom of speech? I did before, but I'll re-expand on it. Yeah, you could say that I think Nathan is paid by UNC to go on the internet and bad talk XYZ. That's being too specific. While you could say, I think that guy, you know, the guy with the mustache, I have a suspicion, you know, my suspicion, I believe that the way how he speaks seems like someone might be paying him for that. Yes, Trini Staple, there are social consequences to statements you make. Freedom of, and usually the liberal side in the United States likes that statement. Freedom of speech is not freedom from consequence, and that is actually true. Like, okay, you may have the freedom to say what you want, but people also have the freedom to not want to line with you when you say what you want. They could find that what you say is abhorrent, so they want to stay far from you. That doesn't remove your freedom of speech. Can you expand on why you said there isn't freedom of speech? Q Neckles, because one, it isn't listed in our constitution. We have freedom of expression. Some people see inside of freedom of expression freedom of speech, but it is not actually there, because in our constitution it's clearly expressly stated that offensive and insulting language is illegal. You cannot have offensive, insulting language illegal and claim to have freedom of speech. It does not work like that. I knew you were going to the Kathy Griffin thing. She was investigated by the Secret Service. It's right there in the story. She was investigated, but did they charge her for illegally expressing her wish to kill Trump? Was there a charge for that? For violent speech? No. There was not. I don't even understand. Trini Staple, I think you're kind of just arguing your point by now. You could cuss the police in the US because they have enshrined freedom of speech. You cannot cuss the police in Trinidad and Tobago because we do not have enshrined freedom of speech. Like, I don't even understand what is the contention there. What is the argument? what is difficult to figure out with this simple reality? I honestly, explain to me what's difficult to understand there. Always say it's alleged for things that can complicate. Correct. She was investigated to ascertain the veracity of the threat. Exactly. You want to know if she's actually trying to go through with a threat. The words themselves, the actions themselves, the expression themselves would not be illegal. She was not investigated for right. Well done, Q Knuckles. If we had freedom of speech, then public obscenities wouldn't be illegal. Correct. That's why those US artists that come to Trinidad and perform regularly get themselves in trouble, because they could go and sing their song in full uncensored version in a US concert, and they come to Trinidad and think they could do that. And listen, even inside of a private club, if an officer wants to pressure you for that, they could lock you up, brother. It has happened to many of them. The simple fact that we need a permit to protest says it all. Our system is much more colonial. That's the reality. But then we argued the other day that public obscenity is not an enforced law. I argued that public indecency, by and large, is not an enforced law. But if you cuss in public, generally speaking, and a police hears you, they're going to harass you for, unless it's a Betham protest. Like, I saw some people saying this about the protest down in Barrackpore, where WPC, what was her name? I have to remember her name to keep calling her name. Where the WPC arrested the Tanti. And people were noting that when protests going on in Betham and Sealats, etc., there are some people cussing the police face to face. And for some reason, the police forget that it's illegal in those moments. All of a sudden, they forget it's illegal. I remember, who was it? Was it Jacobs? I think it was Jacobs during some of the COVID lockdown time, and parties were being held here, parties were being held there, and some people were being arrested for certain things. And was it for the funeral of the deceased leader of the Jamaat? I think it could have been for his funeral. And a crowd gathered, a thick crowd gathered for his funeral. And for no one else's funeral, they were allowing crowds. But the police allowed that crowd. And when questioned about it, I believe the word used by the then acting commissioner was they used discretion. Can you be arrested for cussing on the internet? As far as I know, no. As far as I know, you cannot be arrested for cussing on the internet. I don't think we have laws that would cover that, because most of the obscenity laws and the cussing laws are generally speaking public indecency laws. So they're trying to hold public order, and I don't think you could justifiably claim that the internet is a public space in the way our laws are framed right now. That's what I would theorize. And either way, who is going to bring the case against you? Who is going to be the complainant? The state? Is the state going to start to police the internet to try and prosecute people who cuss online? They'd have a lot of prosecution to do. I think I don't think our courts, well, I mean, our courts don't have enough time and space to do the cases that we currently have. Imagine if you're trying to prosecute every cuss bud online. Trini Staple says we are dealing with different things at once. You know, Trini Staple, I wish you were over on TikTok so you could have joined and we could have had this discussion, so you could explain to me clearly how it is that in a country where you literally cannot freely speak, you have freedom of speech. I don't understand what you are attempting to say there. Reeve, question: if public obscenity was legal, would we start hearing more cussing in soca songs? You know, I don't think so, you know. I think the reason there isn't much cussing in soca song is because there isn't much appeal for it. I don't think the soca genre is a cuss word genre. That's just my opinion. I just don't think it's that kind of genre. I don't know. I don't think so. A guy applied for a job. I'm reading his police certificate and see obscene language. I was shocked. Wait, that's on his criminal record, obscene language? Gee. Ridiculous. For me, like, I'll tell you, I do not think we should have a custom of the public cussing the police. I don't think that would benefit Trinidad and Tobago's culture. However, I think if the general public had the ability to speak to the police in any way, generally speaking, it would put a serious limiter on the arrogance and ego of the police officers in Trinidad and Tobago. Like, I think the negatives we'd face for allowing freedom of speech may be outpaced by the positives we would also gather from it. I think Trini police need to understand that you are not people's daddy. You can't tell you, well, actually you could. Our laws as they are right now, our laws are framed that the police can tell you how to talk to them. Like, watch how you're talking to me, speak to me nicely. Like, police could actually tell you that in the law. Like, if they're your daddy. I despise all those colonial laws. Those laws that you could, laws that you could picture the British pushing down onto the colonies. Not that the British would treat each other like this. This isn't for British and British citizens. No, this is for us and those people down in the colonies. I despise those laws. I despise them. Police officers are regular citizens. They're regular citizens. They should be treated as such, like that, in terms of the language. I think also it would tone down some of our officers a bit. It would tone down some of our officers a bit. And like, I hate seeing charges. Like, regularly you see charges. You charge someone for obscene language and resisting arrest. Like, those combinations, a combination of a charge of obscene language and resisting arrest, tells you a lot. That tells you it's oppression. That, like, scratch off that and say oppression. Obscene language and resisting arrest, oppression. Basically, what happened there, the police tried to manhandle someone. The person didn't like that, so they arrested them. When you see obscene language and resisting arrest, because what is the substantive crime? Like, okay, if you show me robbery or assault or theft or battery or something, and then you show me the resisting arrest, okay. But someone obscene language and then resisting arrest. And what that does is it creates an easy opportunity for the police to for harassment from the police. That's it creates the picture for that colonial policing style, where police could go out in a jeep load and go down into an area and they know they're going to arrest a group of fellas, because they know they're going to go down where the fellas are liming, and they're going to go down there and push down the table and hit a fella a clout and shove the big man in his chest and cuss up at someone. And someone is going to lose their cool. It's going to have a hothead youth man, and the hothead youth man is going to say something back, and voila, resisting arrest. And as soon as you arrest him for cussing and he starts to resist arrest, and then someone else attempts to say, hey, what are you doing? Ah, you two going down. It creates the opportunity and avenue for oppression from our police. That's I don't think that's a positive in Trinidad and Tobago. Employers should reasonably disregard those things when they see it on record. Should. Militant Rockstar says it's probable cause, even a real thing that exists in TNT. Yes, it's supposed to. Kilvon says they abuse it. They know they'll meet a guy without self-control and they will charge him. Exactly. Massimo Original, yeah, that is ludicrous to me. For me, a person probably cuss or something and the police try to manhandle them and they kind of move up the body, etc. and the charge. Correct. And I regularly see it. I live in an area where, you know, it has a bit of a hotspot activity sometimes. And you see sometimes how certain police act. And you see it in some of those areas. They go and they agitate the place, knowing that there are enough laws in our law books that they can arrest people for being agitated. I could go and annoy you in your home, and when you are annoyed in your home for what I'm doing, I arrest you. Look at this. Look at this. Let's combine that with all we learned today. With all we learned today. So the police have the ability to rubber stamp warrants from the justice of the peace. So the police could do like they did to the Marcel brothers, break into my home, mash up my door. Doors cost money. Doors and locks cost money. Break down my door, mash up my door, pull me out naked from my bed while I'm sleeping. And if I wake up and I say, but what any adjective, but what is this by? Is obscene language you're using on me there by youth? Is obscene language? And then they grab me and rough me up. And I'm in my bed, I'm naked in my bed, I confused. And I already get the obscene language charge there. But I say, but what you doing by? I sleeping by? And I only make the mistake and flail my shoulder here. Resisting arrest. So, bad warrant gives me obscene language resisting arrest charge. I am tied up in the system. And they make sure they do that on a Friday, so I am in the jail over the weekend. These are things that do happen on a pretty regular basis. I'm in the jail over the weekend. And my criminal record has that rubbish in it. And when my court case is heard, they advise me, you know what? Just plead guilty. Don't worry, don't try and fight this. If you fight this, you're going to end up in a whole long court battle. Just plead guilty. They will give you a slap on your wrist. You do some community service and whatever. But pleading guilty says that you are guilty of a crime, and now that's permanently on your record. That's the system we live in. And there are some young men that experience that. There are some young men right now in a life of crime. And listen, I'm not excusing criminals. I always say the fault for a criminal is on the criminal. But on a societal side, it makes sense trying to understand the reasons for things. There are some men right now in a life of crime who face situations like this, where they were in what seemed like an inescapable, unfair situation, forced into the tough side of life. And now they decided, well, I'm going to live it. What we going to do about that? What we going to do about that? All right, people. It's getting late. And we already went late last night. If there are no further comments or questions in the live, I'll look to dive out. A woman can call a police friend and get a man detained for the long weekend for maintenance, bro. That one isn't even just a Trinidad thing. And this could connect back to the conversation from last night. This could connect back to the conversation from last night, where there are biases in the system that were there previously for a world that no longer exists. A world that no longer exists. Biases that were in the system to ensure there's a protection just in case. Because they know that, okay, women might be in a vulnerable position because of the nature of how this works. We have to have some protection there for them. The reality of the world that those protections were placed there for no longer exists. So some of those protections now are just biases. Trini Staples says we need reformation badly. Our system is like the Flintstones while everybody else is the Jetsons. 100% agreed on that. Well, not everybody else is the Jetsons, but we do need reformation. So we forget about the Jaguar. Bro, I didn't forget about the Jaguar, but I don't know what to talk about Jaggy. What do we talk about Jaggy? I find it ridiculous, completely ridiculous, that we have big adults bringing jaguars over to Trinidad and Tobago. Like, bro, what are you going to do with a jaguar? You like flexing so much, all that show off you like. You need a jaguar in your home? Like, bro, seriously, seriously. Jaguars are the third largest cats. What are you doing? And then it gets loose. Now, the guy who said he was scraped by the cat, my knowledge of animals, as I said before, tells me that those scrapes seem a little light. The scrapes seem a little light for a jaguar. I know he said it was a juvenile jaguar, but even a juvenile jaguar, I think, is going to tear skin. They will tear skin. Listen, those animals need to kill other animals to live. They don't scratch you for the kicks of it. They don't scratch you to play. Their nails are made to kill. You know, they're made to tear through flesh and grip. Good luck finding the jaguar though. Good luck finding the jaguar. I think though, if there really are some jaguars out in the forest, our hunters are loving themselves. They might act like, you know, this is a very serious thing, and we it's so sad that someone released a jaguar. But those hunters are like, as a hunter, when else would you get the opportunity to track down and hunt a big cat? Like, bro, if I was really into hunting, I would have been down in Palisade all now. I'm telling you, I wanted to be hunting Jaggy too. Reeves says, I just don't want it end up dead. I don't think they would be trying to kill it, because the amount of attention already on this case, if they kill it, they'll get a lot of negative attention. And Trinidad, it has no shortage of bleeding heart, animal loving Peter type people. Trinidad, if we had a Peter in Trinidad, they would have a lot of people. There are lots of people in Trinidad who just overlove animals. Like, you look on the Trini farmers group, and a farmer find a coral snake or a mapapee in his garden, and the farmer kill the coral snake or the mapapee, and some clown must be in the comments like, why did you have to kill the snake? How could you kill the snake? It's more afraid of you than you are of it. Like, bro, I don't blame a farmer, bro. If you find a mapapee in your garden, kill him. Kill him dead. Like, what are we really arguing about here? What are we arguing about here? I don't know how many of you saw this over the week. Unfortunate news. A Russian guy in Egypt was eaten by a shark. Like, on camera. Listen, everybody having the ability to pull out a relatively high quality camera now in the world is going to give us more and more amazingly odd, graphic, crazy footage out there. But yeah, the guy was eaten on camera by a shark. And then obviously the Egyptian authorities went out, caught the shark, and killed the shark. And I'm watching people in the comments like, how could you kill the shark? You killed a shark for doing what sharks do in their own habitat. And like, listen, I made this comment over on Twitter. If humans never killed any dangerous animal in its own habitat, we would still be slugging around the African plains, being killed by big cats and snakes out there. It's what we do. That's why the orcas, the killer whales are very smart. You know, I know for sure killer whales are very smart. Killer whales don't attack humans. Listen, a killer whale could probably take down a mid-sized boat, especially if it's a group of killer whales. Those guys are brilliant. They hunt with strategy. But I think they recognized a long time ago. I wouldn't doubt that maybe sometime in the 1500s or the 1400s or something like that, one fast killer whale went out there and attacked some humans. And the humans did what humans would do. If killer whales start killing humans, we would wipe them off the planet. Like all the lovely they are, and Free Willy, and what's the Michael Jackson song for that? Free Willy, and I think great, lovely. It touches the heart. If killer whales start hunting humans, they would go extinct. Tutus, that is that. End of story. Killer whales, I think, recognize that. So killer whales like, bro, human body, Mr. Homo sapien sapien, We'll stay chief in the water. We don't harass you. You know, you try not to harass us, and you know, we live together happily. We don't harass you. But the shark fast and out of place. He went killing people, and of course they wiped him out. Of course. True, that is the most foolish idea, Massimo says. The name of the jaguar literally means he who kills in one leap. Yup, it's a native name. Jaguar, he who kills in one leap. The jaguar warrior, I believe, was the highest level of warrior of the Aztec warriors, if I recall my history correctly. So it's about killing. And the jaguar, like, you know, most big cats out there biting for throat and neck, and they're looking to bite your foot and no, the jaguar looking to bite the back of your skull, because he has a very strong bite. He could break it. You want this to be prowling around in Trinidad, and they're very silent killers. Like, jaguars are not seen very regular. No, sir. No. Like, I don't want Jaggy to die, personally. And as I said, I don't think the hunters are looking to kill him. Because if they kill him, we have a lot of bleeding heart animal lovers. They'll make a fuss. But if Jaggy start hurting people beyond the petting he did to the guy in South, if Jaggy start hurting people, they will deal with him quickly. There are some orcas attacking boats in Portugal. Check it out. Curvon, I heard that. When I made the post, a guy, one of my friends on Twitter was telling me about that. Port and starboard, he told me, or something like that was the thing to go and check out. In Spain and Portugal region. Yeah, I heard about that. I don't want to be in the water when killer whales, or if killer whales decide that they want to attack. That does not sound like a good time. Like, watching killer whales attack sea lions and seals and dolphins and stuff, it's brutal. Those guys, if killer whales got thumbs, they would take over. All right, that's all I have for now, folks. If there are no further questions or comments inside of the live, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I'll be stepping out, going to get some rest. I don't know if you could see it in my eyes. The tiredness is there in my eyes. How much percent we explored the sea? I think, Krimak, we don't even know the percentage we explored, because there are depths that we are not sure about. Jaguars are really big on stealth killing. Yes, they are. Peace out, Nisi. Hold it down. Hold it down for the red woman. Hold it down for the good red woman out there. Make a change. Allow the world to know that the red women have good in their hearts, Nisi. You will be the good ambassador for the red woman. Good night, Trini Hotep. Good night. Check out Carib Coin in the news. I will. Laters, Krimak. Peace out, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. I hope I see all you guys again for the next Monday. The next live, which is going to be Monday night. Stay safe.